Mark, what accent did this woman have? What was this?
Essex.
That's where she was.
Yeah, Essex.
Okay, because it sounds to me like, the Australian hint in there when they say no, when they're saying no, they say no.
You know why? Because the ships that went to Australia came out of the Essex area. So an Australian accent is based on an Essex accent. Either, depending on where in Australia, either the teeth will be close together like this, or the mouth will be wide like this. But essentially, it's an Essex accent like this. Yeah, this is your kind of a rough Essex accent. And then if you add that teeth close together like that, you get something quite Australian.
Cool. I couldn't figure it out. I don't know about that. And where did this happened in Essex, correct?
Yeah,
this happened in Essex. Hey, when Chase gets back, here's what we do.
We have something.
Whose grandmother sent you those?
I happen to think these are kind of cool.
Dude, I wouldn't be saying that.
Yes.
I'm going to put this on the show.
1980s cool.
Yes, you do.
Oh, my gosh. Dude. And you make fun of my clip-ons.
Do I do the whole episode like that?
I dare you. I dare you. You look like the human fly's son or his cousin. The human fly's cousin.
I'll take cousin.
Kenny. Today we're going to talk about Virginia McCullough. And Greg, why don't you tell us about the videos we're going to watch?
So these are just recently released. Virginia McCullough is a British convicted murderer serving life imprisonment for the murders of her parents, John and Lois McCullough. The reason that they arrested her is the doctors said, hey, something's up. We haven't heard from these people in a while, the physicians. And the Essex Police went in September of 2023. She had killed her parents and been living with the bodies for 4 years. And this even gets more bizarre than that, but you'll get some details as we actually watch this. She has a minimum term of 36 years, so we're not going to hear from her anytime soon.
I forgot to say we're going to break down and decode her body language.
Go back and do it again.
On top of that. So, no, let's just leave that in like the way it is. We're just going to go, no edits. So, and one thing I thought would be interesting today for us is this. When I got the videos, I misread whatever the first one was, dyslexia. And I left out the first part of it. So what I thought we would do here at the beginning is look at the first part of it and just go freestyle about what we think we're seeing without seeing it but the one time. I haven't even watched it all the way through. I just cut it from end to end. Went to one end and the other end and cut it out. So what do y'all think about that? And we'll come back and go through. All right, let's do that.
No one in here at the moment. Hold on. The police. Got it. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Show your hands. You here?
Jenny?
Yep.
Jenny?
Yeah.
Cool. The time is 12:12. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder against Jonathan McCullough and Elias McCullough.
Yeah,
okay? You don't have to say anything, but it may come defence. If you do not mention when question, so much like want anything to do so have your business. Okay? Alright, your arrest is necessary for a content of
Is there anything in the pot that we should know about?
Yes, there is. Can I take you through it?
No, you can tell me.
Can we go in there for a second, just so I can tell you something about what's in there?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then
I want to tell us
the only
something.
reason I said I need to tell you something about what's upstairs on the top floor as well.
It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Greg, what do you got?
This is a really good first encounter because it shows you that she's got a box in her head for this happening. Nothing new for her. There's not shock. There's not terror. There's none of that stuff. There's no fight or flight. In one of my many incarnations in my life, I have closed down branches of a business that were not functioning well. I was running a business and it had some poorly functioning branches. And when I went in, I expected people to be upset and all this kind of stuff. You know what their first question was? What took you so long? What took you so long? They had in their head a box for the day that was going to happen and how things are going to go. And we see that in her. Look at her. She's moving her sleeves back. Hey, I want to be comfortable in these cuffs, so I'm going to do the best thing I possibly can. She's making eye contact. I've heard she's diagnosed with ASD or autism spectrum disorder. We'll have to pay attention to see if we see any markers of that. But what we do see is her trying to make herself comfortable, her putting her head into that right place. She has a box in her head for that to work. And when I did a show, if you find it, called Torture, the Guantanamo book, Guantanamo Guidebook on UK4, we had these really extreme sports guys that we used. There was one in there called Britain's Fittest Fireman. The guy was really together. He goes into burning buildings all the time. And that guy, when I said, look to the ground, he started trying to get on the ground because his head was in such a weird place. He had no expectation for how he's being treated. This is clearly not the case with her. Chase, what do you see?
Yeah, so we almost see that that there's some relief, like almost like there's been a stress buildup her whole life, and this becomes some kind of sense of relief right here. We do see that she wants to take them into another room to talk about what's upstairs, and maybe there's some social pressure here. There's some social stuff going on to where she wants to minimize the amount of people that she does this in front of so it's as comfortable as possible. And Greg, I think you're absolutely right. This has been something she's been expecting, and this has been something that she has been maybe looking forward to. And we'll obviously get a lot more into that. She's very compliant. And if you ever want to put handcuffs on someone, this is not the way to do that. You want the backs of their hands facing each other, and you want their arms behind their back. You never put the palms together. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of weird. But look at the police officer when he's doing it. At first, he's a little bit worked up. Then he realizes what's happening as far as her body language goes. She's relaxed, which obviously is odd because when they come breaking through the door, you hear him kicking the door in and all that. I guess because it's been 4 years that her parents have been deceased. And you're right, it's probably a situation where she's relieved from that, but still, is it the cops? Is it this? Is it that? And when people come in from both sides like that, that's fairly intense. You go busting somebody's door in instead of just knocking on it. So, and she doesn't show any signs of stress, not even a little bit, nothing. So I think you guys are probably right. Maybe this is cathartic for her, because she's relaxed and trying to give information while they're cuffing her up in the front.
At the Behavior Panel, our goal is to help you see behind the surface, to spot deception and analyze the true intent behind people's words. It is a mission that I personally feel strongly about, especially in today's bias and overwhelming media landscape. And mainstream media tends to blur the truth and make it really hard to see through the chaos. This is why all of us are proud to have Ground News as a sponsor. They help readers look beyond the mainstream narratives and uncover the patterns in the way that today's news really spins and frames the issues that are going on, or even just fails to cover them in the first place, like they don't even talk about it. So for every story that you read on their app or their website, you get instant access to every outlet that's reporting on that thing. On top of that, there's a breakdown of each source's political bias. For instance, you get this report of how subjective their reporting tends to be, and if they're independently owned, or are they funded by corporations or governments, or are they getting their money from somewhere that's influencing what they're saying to you? So Ground News really helps you see the subtle ways that the media can very heavily shape our public opinion. I'm not even immune to it after studying all this psychology stuff, and it's good to be able to see behind the curtain. I'm actually in the process of writing a book. It's almost done on media brainwashing, and I think they're one of the most practical solutions that I have ever seen. So check it out by scanning this QR code or go to ground.news/TBP. Our viewers get 40% off unlimited access, whether you subscribe for yourself or if it's a gift for somebody. Christmas is coming up. Ground News is independent and subscriber funded, not by any special interests. So by subscribing, you're not only just getting a great product, you're directly supporting our work here at the Behavior Panel.
So Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so she, by the way, Chase, I think what you're seeing there is a classic freestyle Essex cuffing. The way Essex Police will cuff is like, it changes every day. They're freestyling it. They're riffing with their cuffing at this point. I just didn't want you to not understand, just how they like to cuff in Essex.
Sounds like you know a little bit too much about that, Mark.
Yeah.
Pub activity.
I've spent some time.
See anybody you know in there?
Sorry?
See anybody you know? Did you see anybody you know in that video?
No, I didn't.
The fellas?
No, I didn't. No, luckily I didn't.
Okay.
Luckily I
Just
didn't.
checking.
Okay, so look, helpful, very helpful. You're absolutely right. Calm, helpful. Is there any stress there? She does move from open hands to closed hands there. So there seems to be some, what would we call it, Chase? Digital flexion, maybe a little bit there. Could hint towards a little bit of stress there. I mean, obviously, we're going to expect some level of stress. Police have come in from both sides. You're having a good old Essex cuffing there, and you're going to have some stress of some sort, but still pretty calm. ASD, Greg, where on the spectrum might that be? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's clearly an understanding there of when she's broadcasting to the public, to the wider group, and when she brings it down to be very personal with a couple of officers and say, can I have a word, and be quite private about that. I think we're going to see this idea further on. Is it, Chase, the social pressure, or could it be some form of manipulation? Let's have a look and see where we get with that. But already in that one, we see this big difference between the public voice and that private voice. You know, interesting if there's ASD there, to be able to understand those two types of voices and be able to turn them on a dime. Yeah. That's pretty interesting with that diagnosis in there. Anyway, great start. Let's see what we got next.
Mark, I was waiting for you to go. As the handcuffs are coming on, let's talk about bracelets and the history of what that means.
We'll get there.
No one in here at the moment. Hold on. The police. Got it. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Show your hands. You here?
Jenny?
Yep.
Jenny?
Yeah.
Oh. The time is 12:12. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder against Jonathan McCullough and Lars McCullough.
Yeah.
Okay? She doesn't say anything, but in my humble defence, if you do not
I just
mention
take my coffee.
when questioned, so much like not anything to do so have your business. Okay? Alright, your arrest is necessary
I'll
for a
cooperate.
prompt and effective.
Is there anything in the pot that we should know about?
Yes, there
Where?
is. Can I take you to it?
No, you can tell me.
Can we go in there for a second, just so I can tell you something about what's in there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just tell us
The only
something
reason
about
I
what's in
said I need to tell you something about what's upstairs on the top floor as well.
It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
It's a bit more quieter.
That's why I said, can I go upstairs and show you?
Right, can you
If
explain
wanna
it to us,
bring
please? Because
officers,
we're trying to preserve this. It's now going to be seen, so we need to preserve this the best we can. So I don't want you to have you walking up there, all right? Because that's for your well-being as well as ours.
Oh, no, up.
Okay. So
Thank you.
where will we
Can I
find your
grab some
mum?
hairbands as well, possible?
Where will we find your mum?
Okay, so upstairs there are about 5 wardrobes.
Yep.
It's behind the bed at the back next to the sink. It's the second one.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
So, as some context, Greg mentioned earlier, she's been living in this home for years and was recently discovered to have been hiding these people in her house, bodies. Her lack of emotional affect is really shocking to me. So, I'd be expecting at least some embarrassment or shame to appear on the face here. There's a huge blink rate increase here. You're going to notice it. But that's only when she's doing this transderivational search in her head to recall where everything is located. She knows where it is, but she's recalling it in a way that she can describe it. And that's what's causing the search, in my opinion. There is one behavioral pattern I think is relevant for people to really understand, because you're going to see this in your everyday life. When you see this constant eyebrow flashing behavior like this and parted lips where somebody's mouth just at rest looks like this, when you see that, this is almost always an attempt to appear innocent or non-threatening. So when you see it in high conflict or high stress situations, what you're most likely seeing is how they've navigated through conflict since childhood. So she's projecting an image of innocence and vulnerability because it worked for her, most likely for decades when she faced some kind of conflict. So if you've seen the NCI animal behavior profiling chart, which breaks down how human behavior can be seen as 8 different animals, the 4 ways of conflict in this chart are connection, prevention, strategy, and removal. So each of those has 2 animals in them. And the connection part, there's a puppy in there, which protects itself through absolute vulnerability and innocence. So people develop most of these behavioral patterns before they're like 10 years old. I wish I could go into that, but I'll throw a link down there. You can just download the PDF of it. It's actually kind of neat. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, let's go back to if somebody said she has ASD, I surely don't see it here. There's a hell of a lot of eye contact. And I always call this the social organ of the human body is the forehead, making contact, condemning, doing all that kind of stuff. You don't see it as much in people who are really far into the spectrum. Maybe we didn't diagnose her, so we don't know why they cause that. But she is interested in what they believe. Chase, I think organism does what made the organism successful is going to be a great example for us to understand that she has throughout her life done something. I want to know a lot about her family. What I do know is she has 3 siblings. How did this go on for 4 years without, hey, mom, hey, dad, where are you? Hey, mom, hey, dad, where are you? Apparently she'd been hiding it through some kind of trickery, but come on, 4 years? That's a tough one. It's your birthday. It's her birthday. There's a ton of stuff that has to wonder about family conditions and that kind of thing. What is interesting, where you're talking about the gap lips and that kind of thing, I think that is from her past, because I don't think she's showing any attempt at being innocent here. So I agree with you. It's something from her past. What she's doing, you see that forehead up, she's asking for approval, and she's got large illustrators and telling the facts about where they are. You're dead on, Chase. She does a really good visual eye accessing cue as she tries to describe which of these, not cupboards, the body is in, and she goes through the mechanics of it. She does large illustrators, congruency in word, in illustrator, in tone, in cadence. Everything is matching. If somebody was telling you, hey, this happened to me, you would say, they're telling the truth. This is all the right body language for that.
Yeah.
Downward telling when she hits certain points. And then the only time I see the request for approval is when she's giving you facts. And I don't think it's lying to you. What I think it is she's trying to get you to, hey, do you understand what I'm talking about? Do you get where I'm telling you to go look? So all that together shows us that she's done this somehow in the past. And again, I don't see a lot of shock. I think the blink rate, like you said, is associated with accessing. Don't see a lot of shock. We expect that a person would be in shock and they would show some shame here. Don't see it. But 4 years and a lot of internal voice, a lot of rolling things over, a lot of taking the edge off things will make people able to have a straight face and tell you all kinds of horrible things. Scott, what do you got? So you're not last.
All right. Thank you. So her attitude throughout, from the beginning until the end of these videos, you'll notice that she's very helpful. Everything is calm. She delivers very just open, not like she's not hiding anything, obviously. There's no pushback, no problems, nothing. And I think these police officers see that pretty much right out of the gate because they're not being aggressive. They're not getting loud. They're not, making these big demands, no get on the ground, no, none of this, nothing like that up to now anyway. So her eyebrows are up, and Greg's a term that he coined, a request for approval. So as she's talking, making sure that they are accepting that information and are okay with it. Her chin's up, so she's not concerned about protecting herself or protecting, these arteries or her neck or anything. She's not turtling, anything like that. Her cadence, voice tone and volume, all that's fairly smooth. Not very loud. She's just in her normal speaking voice. And she's making direct eye contact, but it's not like that hardcore direct eye contact. It's very soft. She's just looking, it's conversational. So this is odd behavior for the situation. So I've never seen anything like this before, anything we've done up to this point. There are a couple of things that are similar. Y'all may point those out as we go through. Their illustrators are fairly strong. They're not over the top and not too much, but they're fairly strong and they're fluid. So they're on point. I think she's being very open and honest with them. I'm not seeing deception here. And overall, she's just really calm and helpful, which is bizarre to see this. So, Mark, what do you got?
It's a good British classic arrest. She's like, you got me bang to rights, governor. I deserve everything. That nice and calm, nice and calm. So look, what's interesting is she's managed to hive split two of them off, get them in another room, and now she's taking control of the situation. Now she's like going, I need my hair bands. I'm going to go upstairs. She's hived them off. She's taking control of the situation here. She's talking over the top of one of the officers. So she's really moderating the whole conversation now. When you say puppy chase, I think she is acting the puppy, but behind that, we're going to see an absolute Rottweiler, an absolute Essex Rottweiler in there. And that'll be coming up soon. But the officer there, he's using his regulators. He's trying to moderate the conversation with his regulators. She's regulating back, cuffed, taking control of the situation. Her illustrators, though, around this are really good. So, yeah, absolutely. She's being absolutely honest about her part in these murders and helpful and honest about where evidence is going to be found. What she isn't showing us right now is exactly who she is. And we will certainly start to see that in the second video. But right now, she's calm. She's what I would call in her temperament and her tension state, the tension in her muscles, I would call it operational. She's just getting stuff done. Just getting the operation done. So it feels very helpful, but you could view it as actually just systematic. She's got something on her mind. She knows where she wants this to go, and she's systematically going to move it towards that. I think under the guise of a very British arrest there. She bang to rights, Governor, you got me. All done. I'm coming quietly, like. Let's have a look at the next video.
Don't boss me around, Mark. I'll decide when we start that as a fuss.
That's why I said, can I go upstairs and show you?
Can you explain it to us, please? Because we're trying to preserve this. It's now going to be seen, so we need to preserve this the best we can. So I don't want you to have you walking up there, all right? Because that's for your well-being as well as ours.
Oh, no,
okay. So where will we find your mum? Where will we find your mum?
Okay, so upstairs there are about 5 wardrobes.
Yep.
It's behind the bed at the back next to the sink. It's the second one. I slipped 5 of those into his drink. There were about 2 or 3 drinks that I brought downstairs. And yeah, they were basically, he didn't drink all of them. He only drank probably about half of 2. But yeah, when I went in the morning, this was before my mother. When I went in the morning, early hours, I got up about half an hour early, about 6 o'clock in the morning. Came in and he was gone. He was gone. Okay. It's I did know that this would kind of come eventually. It's proper that I serve my punishment. So yeah.
Okay, so Virginia, I'm just going to ask you this. This is what I've written down based on the information you just told us, because what we regard as a significant comment, because you've made it under caution after your arrest.
By the way, they're my granddad's.
Okay, right. So I've written this, please. I, Virginia McCullough, have informed Police Constables 77329 Brown and 79387 Bowers after entering my house on Friday the 15th September 2023 that I murdered my father, John McCullough, who was stated was under a bed in the rear ground floor of the house, and my mother upstairs in a cupboard next to the sink.
Wardrobe. It's a double wardrobe.
Right, okay, I've written
double
cupboard.
Wardrobe. It's like 4 wardrobe doors, but it's the one nearest the sink. Double wardrobe.
Back up then.
Yeah.
What's significant as I've written down here now, I've just read out to you. Are you happy to sign that, to say that's a true account?
Yeah. Cheer off, at least you caught the bad guy.
I've just woken up today and done my job.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so once again, she's properly arrested. It's as if this is who you'd get if Catherine Tate did for the British there will understand who Catherine Tate is, Essex comedian. And she is very calm, no problem correcting the officer at this point. Now, often when there's no problem in correcting the record, we'll often say, hey, you know, that's a great show of honesty, especially in these situations. I'm not sure it is honest for sure, but I think there's an element of power there as well. It's a good avatar for her playing power, still in that operational tension state, just getting stuff done. She says, proper that I serve my punishment, proper that I serve my punishment. And then we get the chin coming forward, a little bit of what Chase might call the chin boss there. So a little bit of a sense of sorrow, an out-breath of resignation there, and then a look downright and tight pursed lips. Here's what I think. I think she tries to show, she tries to look for pity on its proper that I serve my punishment, but actually what she leaks is anger and resentment behind that. I think that's her, the pity is an act, and I believe the anger and resentment is the more honest temperament that she has. She controls, again, the situation by talking about Grandad's paintings. Again, it's kind of apropos of nothing. She points something out, Grandad's paintings, takes control of the conversation, narrows her eyes on that, and then shows contempt on one side of her mouth around that. Quite a fast moment there, often what people might call micro gesture, because named after the micro in that it takes up 1 or 2 or 3 frames of a video. We've probably got about 30 frames a second or a little bit less here, and it maybe lasts for maybe 2 or 3 frames there. So it's relatively quick. But for sure, from my point of view, you got the eyes narrowing, again, anger, targeting, and contempt at the police officer, when before what she was showing was sorrow and looking for pity. Look, she can really turn on a dime here from nice to nasty. And you see that happening, and then you get that sarcasm and sarcastic tone at the end of this video. She says, cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy. Cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy. Real sarcasm there. So hang on. She's gone from the most helpful person here to really quite sarcastic and aggressive. So which one is she? Which one is she, and which one would you get, and when would you get which one? Greg, what do you got on this one?
What's interesting for me, though, Mark, is, you know, whether she's got some disorder along the way, one of the really cool things to see here is when she lingers her eye contact with that guy just long enough to see what's going on. And I think the reason she does that sarcastic comment at the end is because he's morose or depressed looking in his face, and she's trying to lighten the mood. Whether it's control, which I think it is, or whether it's polite is a different story. And you know your culture better than I do, of course. But I think there is that she sees something in his face, and she's afraid to be condemned by these guys for that stuff, even though she's accepting it. And if you want cues of that, she has really good understanding of right and wrong. You can tell because the way she responds to the questioning, she can pick up on their social cues because she does that. She lingers eye contact and then responds. So let's go all the way back at the beginning. Watch her. Chase, you always talk about people withdrawing their lips when they need reassurance, like a kid standing. She does that right out of the gate. She's telling, but she's using asking with long vowels about what happened. She has less eye contact and more internal voice. She's searching the floor as she starts to talk about the actual criminal pieces of what she did. I put this in his drink. When she comes back to the mundane things about how much he drank when she went up in the morning, she goes into a telling tone, into a downward tone, and she makes eye contact. So she's aware that the criminal, the negative parts about putting something in his drink and that may be perceived a certain way. She squints as she tries to identify approximate time. Chase, you always say people will approximate a time even when they're guilty. Great example. Or even when they don't know, when they're innocent, they're just going to try to make a thing work out. In this case, she's guilty and she doesn't mind telling you, so she's giving you that detail. And after she does that, after she does that approximate time, there's a request for approval with some pursed lips of disappointment. She has her lips forward like that, and then a chin tuck, and that shame shows up in her chin. and some absolute eye avoidance. So she knows she's done wrong. And if you are not sure of that and you want to see one piece of body language that tells you she knows she's done wrong and she knows the difference in right and wrong, look at all that swallowing, blushing, and eye contact breaks after she tells you what she did. This is not typical of a person I would think had ASD. It's typical of a person, I think, Mark, to your point, who's working the system. I think this is a what else you got? You got me. What else you got? What else you going to do? I don't think she's worried about what they can say to her, condemn her, but we're going to see that she does care. As we walk through these things, you'll see she does care about certain things and about how she is judged, even though she's admitting to murder. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I very much agree with you. Those points are incredible. Sadie is going to be making some shorts out of those with some good overlays of those. One thing you might see here is this arm going across her abdomen. This is common when people are in handcuffs. So there's no way that I would say there's something going on here. If you remember the C5 model, if you know what that is, we go changes, context, clusters, culture, and checklist. So we would stop going down that list at the context part there. But there's no shame, no guilt, no embarrassment. And the fact that she showed absolutely no signs of guilt. Sorry, the mail lady is ripping down my driveway right now. I'm a little distracted. But there's no embarrassment. There's no stress when confessing is pretty significant. Most people will be really overwhelmed with emotions right here. This is common in severe personality disorders where empathy and remorse just aren't there. And with her living with the bodies this long, this is truly disturbing. There are a couple of ways to look at it. Maybe. On one hand, it could point to the extreme emotional detachment that she's going through. And on the other hand, there's a chance that keeping the bodies in the house could be some kind of twisted form of guilt or self-punishment. And I think she's playing into an image she thinks is going to make other people see her as less dangerous or slightly less responsible. And she's telling the investigator to cheer up. This is one of the most striking aspects, I think, of all of her behavior. What's weird is the contrast. There's no emotion about the murders themselves, but suddenly she's showing care for somebody else. Maybe it's feigned, maybe it's not, but it's selective empathy, which is really common in people with personality disorders. And this straightforward confession that we're seeing here might seem like honesty, but it might be more about control, to what y'all were saying earlier. And I think maybe there's some control there. So as a quick pro tip here, there's a common issue that I call label addiction, because maybe some of you were going through this in your mind while I was talking just now. And this is where people feel compelled to assign labels or diagnoses to behaviors because it makes us feel more knowledgeable, more in control. And it's almost like a reflex. If I could just put a name on something, I get a false sense of mastery over that thing. So the problem is the labels tend to oversimplify really complex human stuff, and it makes us think that we understand more than we do. So it's comforting, but it's misleading because real understanding goes beyond just slapping a label on something. So once a label is there, it's like a lens that permanently colors everything and kind of creates a little micro confirmation bias. That's maybe the longest I've ever gone. Scott, what do you got?
Why do you always say it's the longest you've ever gone? This is like the third time you've said that's the longest you've ever gone.
I think I broke
Okay,
that
girls,
record.
cut it out.
Try to start some stuff with the comments. All right. I really think this is interesting because there's going to be that thing between is this psychopathic behavior? Or is this some sort of autism situation on the spectrum there? Is this histrionic? What are we dealing with here? It's fascinating. What we should do is try to find somebody into psychology to come on here and help break this down as well. That's what we should have done, because this for me is fascinating because it's showing all kinds of different things in here. You know, when a psychopath, when they get rid of bodies or they dispose of bodies, sometimes they'll do the same thing every time. And in this case, she does one is downstairs and one is upstairs. One's in a sleeping bag, and the other one's just in a cupboard or whatever. This is really, really interesting the way this is laying out. But while they're talking to her again, she's calm, just like you're talking about anything just about anything. So this is just fascinates me the way she's behaving like this. Her illustrators are a little bit lower now. And of course, we're dealing with that thing where there are, like you were talking about, Chase, she can't really move a whole lot of things. And so her arm goes right there, which is, it looks like it's self-soothing or pacifying, but it's not, but she can't move it very much but that arm is down here. So maybe there's something to that as well. I don't think so, but because I think you're right, Chase, I don't think there's anything with that. And then her cadence and her voice tone and volume, all that's pretty much the same too. There's one little change we'll talk about in a minute in her cadence, but it stayed the same. The pausing, as she pauses and squints, she's thinking. So she's not, her mind isn't racing. She's not just blathering with answers or thoughts out of nowhere. So she's under control in some way. There's no panic in there. So that's interesting as well. And the lip purse, when she's shaking her head no, she can't remember. She's not sure about the 6 o'clock, whatever time that was she got up. She wants to give specifics so bad that that kind of bothers her, that she's not exactly sure exactly what time that she got up. And she's not spot on correct, because that was 4 years ago whenever that happened. So when she got up to do that. The cadence change speeds up when she says he was gone. When she goes, he was gone, which makes sense because she's trying to get that out and get rid of it. Because maybe that's painful for her, if she does feel pain at all. So this is getting really interesting. So then she shows that slight expression of sadness, and you see that the glabella group up in there a little bit. So there's a little bit, it seems like there's a little bit of emotion in there. I don't think it's fake because it's not coming, she's not making a show out of it to show she's being, but it's just bang, and it goes on there, it morphs into that, and then it sort of goes away. It's not really fast, and show up and leave. So I believe those are real. And the police are doing a great job on this because listen to what they say. Hardly anything, just the important things. And she'll go on and say something, and she may even ask a question, and they still, nothing. So she's just talking. It's beautiful what they're doing. These guys aren't very old, so I'm sure it doesn't come from years of hard knocks and, knowing how it works. Maybe they've been trained to do that. But man, keeping your mouth shut during something like that is tough to do. Yeah, but they're doing a great job of that. And then she says, I knew this day would come. And that's where you see that big breath and that exhale. So that big cathartic exhale, trying to get rid of all that built up stress and tension in there. So I think there's a whole lot going on because she doesn't look, she's not sad. She's not freaked out. She's not panicking. Everything it's almost, flat. The flat affect we're always talking about with psychopaths. So then again, you've got this thing that you're weighing back and forth. Going back to when I was talking about the disposal patterns that psychopaths do, I've done a video that we'll put in that PDF that what we started doing is putting together this PDF of our notes so you can go over and see what we wrote down and what we're queuing. When I look down here at mine, what I'm queuing off of, Mark is, Greg is, and Chase is, and you can see what we're doing. So in those, you'll find a link down there in mine to this video that's about the disposal patterns of psychopaths and serial killers that I really think you'll find interesting. Mark, what do you got? Did you go?
He went.
Yeah, you were last.
Yeah.
Oh, was I last?
Yeah.
As usual.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll see that. I could have said something funny there. What?
Yeah.
Right where you
I
belong.
need to walk out for a minute.
Rouse.
Okay. Okay, we'll put you out for a minute. Well, Chase and I'll sit here. What are you talking about, man? Let's do this. Greg's got to go pee-pee.
I slipped a pile of those into his drink. There were about 2 or 3 drinks that I brought downstairs. And yeah, they were basically, he didn't drink all of them. He only drank probably about half of 2. But yeah, when I went in the morning, this was before my mother. When I went in the morning, early hours, I got up about half an hour early, about 6 o'clock in the morning. Came in and he was gone. He was gone. It's I did know that this would kind of come eventually, it's proper that I serve my punishment. So, yeah.
Okay, so Virginia, I'm just going to ask you this. This is what I've written down based on the information you just told us, because what we regard as a significant comment, because you've made it under caution after your arrest.
By the way, they're my granddad's.
Okay, right. So I've written this, please. I, Virginia McCullough, have informed police constables 77329 Brown and 79387 Bowers after entering my house on Friday the 15th September 2023 that I murdered my father, John McCullough, who was stated was under a bed in the rear ground floor of the house, and my mother upstairs in a cupboard next to the sink.
Wardrobe. It's a double wardrobe.
Right, okay, I've written
Double
cupboard.
wardrobe. It's like 4 wardrobe doors, but it's the one nearest the sink. Double wardrobe.
Back up then.
Yeah.
What's significant, as I've written down here now, I've just read out to you. Are you happy to sign that, to say that's a true account?
Yeah. Cheer off, at least you caught the bad guy.
I've just woken up today and done my job.
I know I don't seem
Not a lot.
100% evil, but we all,
I'm not going to comment on anything. It's not my job to comment on it, okay? Because I've got to be impartial with everything, okay? So I'm not going to give any comment.
No, well, I mean, I deserve to obviously get whatever's coming sentence-wise, because that's the right thing to do. And that might give me a bit of peace. Also in the handbag as well, there's and again, because you're probably going to need to know about it, there's a card in there, card one money, and that's a bank card where there's a lot of transactions that have taken place over the last few years from money that pertains to my parents.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So I think we're back to her wanting his approval. And let's go back to something you said, Chase. It's really easy to start branding people. People do things for all kinds of reasons. We don't know what their history is. We clearly know that the other siblings have not kept in touch. Something could be in her background that caused her to want so badly them gone that she did this. This is pretty meditated. This is not an accident. She tried something more than one time and even did something very violent to her mother. So what kind of person does that? This kind of person does that. That's all we can say. We can't say she's a psychopath. Scott, you were saying maybe we should bring a psychologist on. They wouldn't, in 4 minutes, they wouldn't have enough information to make a decision. So I think we're going to do probably better than most people because we can read body language at least. That head shake and that chin boss of acceptance. You know, we say the chin boss comes up in lots of reasons. That's one. Okay, that's it. I'm busted, flat-footed, mouth drawn to the sides. That's it. This is a fair deal. I'm busted. There's also disapproval. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's acceptance or resignation. Yep. And there's disapproval and disdain as her sides of her mouth come back, and maybe even a little bit of disgust. And then she shows shame. Then we talk about the chin boss showing shame. She actually does. I think she's worried about what this guy thinks right now. And I think that what we're seeing here is learned containment. If you, your entire life as a child all the way up through now, have been told, don't do this, don't show this, don't do that, wipe that off your face, you're going to have a certain kind of behavior. And I always say the organism does what made the organism successful. She's learned this somewhere. How? We can't tell. The other thing that I would say is all we are is 2-year-olds covered in hair and scars. Whatever 2-year-old things she learned, she's continued and continued and continued. And that all that containment makes me want to know why. Why does she feel the need to be that contained? Makes you want to go look in and learn more. Now, let's talk about where she does start to pause and not give details. Her cadence changes. She's more reticent to discuss spending the money of her family after they're dead. It's likely because, and I'm just going to conjecture a bit, because what we typically see in people that have gone through something, Chase, if you think back to your most traumatic moments of your combat experience, that stuff for a few years is pretty sharp. Then it goes away because we put it away. We box it away. In some people, it never goes away. They don't have a place to store it and they have a difficulty with it. But if you've been living with something for 4 years, especially with all the precautions she had to take and all that, you kind of grind the edges off that story. It stops being as important to you. But now she has to admit not to something she did and has come to resolution within her own head, but to something she's still doing. She's still spending money, stealing from, and these were pension checks, some of them. So now she's got a whole different crime. She's admitting to doing something. So all that murder's past, but these 4 years of internal conversations that ground that away are not working on this stuff she's stealing now. And the reason I think you know that is because you see that she knows right from wrong here, and she quickly closes her mouth right after she talks about money that pertains to her parents. And then what's she doing with her hand? Is there a fly in the room, or is she trying to cool herself off? But she makes hard eye contact and a hard chin boss of this time of grief after she makes that money admission. Really, really profound. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, here's what I got on this one. So she says, deserve everything, sentence-wise. That may give me a bit of peace, she says. So, that's quite focused on her, looking for her peace right now. And along with that, we get contempt. We then get that look for pity in between. I think you're right, Greg. It could be shame. And it would feel like shame to me if it didn't have contempt before it and then anger after it. And so I'm going to put forward on this that it is, again, a look to them to gain some form of pity from them, because I think her gambit is pull two aside, work a little bit of magic there, start the whole story process of gaining some form of sympathy or pity, and see how that runs in this initial moment. See how that plays in this initial moment, because then we can kind of work out, should I play that with who eventually questions me in the police station? Should I play that in front of the judge? Should I play that in front of a jury? Now, of course, I'm just conjecturing here. I have no sure idea. I'm just putting pieces together, just like you might, and you may well know more than I do. Well, you will do about the case and so forth. So just more intel for you to add to that. So I get contempt, a look for pity or shame, and then anger after that. She then, as you were saying, Greg, she starts to help around the financial evidence. She hasn't been asked any questions around that. She says, look, here's what you're going to go, and you'll see a card up there. She directs them to the credit card or the cash card. I guess it's the bank account card. You'll want to get hold of that, and starts informing them of evidence that they can collect, at the same time doing this wave across her, which could be the smell of the bodies. Well, if that's the case, she's been living with that, certainly on a full-time or part-time basis. I don't know whether she's been only living there or living somewhere else as well and calling in. I'm not quite sure. But to start playing that now, it's kind of a bit of a push-pull there. It's kind of a bit of like, let me give you something, and at the same time, negate that at the same time. And there's a lot of this positive, and then pulling a negative out of it, just like she did with cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy. She's been really, really helpful, and then she undercuts with sarcasm at that point. So an interesting character. Yeah, I wouldn't make any psychological evaluation at this point, but for sure you got a real character here. We don't usually expect this kind of behavior in this kind of situation, and yet here she is, super cool about it, nice, helpful, and then at times sarcastic, angry, contemptuous, and antagonistic, and turning on that, on a dime. Interesting. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And Greg, you know who has the best compartmentalization ability for those kinds of things I've ever seen in my life? Is pediatric oncologists.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have to.
They deal with what I think might be even worse stuff regularly. And they're not often in a foreign country. This is like every day of their life. So it's tougher.
Agreed.
When she uses this phrase, that's the right thing to do, I think this reinforces her framing this whole thing as a logical conclusion instead of a deeply felt moral reckoning. And it's not about remorse, but it's about a matter-of-fact acceptance of a system that she knows she can't control. So this level of detachment aligns with maybe psychopathic tendencies. I said tendencies here, so keep that in mind, where there's intellectual recognition of wrongdoing, but no accompanying emotional turmoil. So think about that chasm between that there. And the part where she says sentencing might bring her a bit of peace is very telling. On one level, it's kind of hinting that something's about the situation is like bothering her. And even if it's not typical guilt, maybe it's not so much about feeling bad for what she did, but more about the mental stress of keeping the secret for so long, living with the bodies, lying to everybody. It's a lot to carry. So peace for her might just mean finally getting relief from that burden. Like she's been holding her breath and she can finally let it out. But now if this is true, at this point, now it's someone else's job to deal with the aftermath, and she doesn't have to carry that load alone. And I think that's what's going on right here. Scott?
Scott, before you go, you know what I think she is getting relief from? Apprehension.
Could be. Hey, tell that story, man.
It's a running joke with me and Scott whenever we're doing whatever newscast, how quickly you can get the word apprehension in there.
And I think
he's apprehensive.
Or a different form of it.
This is about control, though, this whole thing.
Oh, agreed.
For somebody who,
Agreed.
even facing punishment feels more predictable and comforting than the uncertainty of I've got to hide crap from everybody.
Yeah. I think she's had a checklist in her head of what had to happen the minute they knocked on the door. That's
Anyway,
again,
Scott, I said
control.
enough that you don't even need to go. Let's
And the next one.
You're
Another
last
long.
again.
Thanks for another long one, Chase. Dang it.
welcome.
Should I take that out? I'll take that out. Oh, well.
Oh, that's
Thanks.
funny.
You didn't have to say that, but thanks.
Man. Oh, well. Okay, I'll go last. It's okay. So the expressions.
It's working, guys.
This is really interesting for me here because, again, you've got that you're weighing that psychopathy, autism, what's going on, and we can all view this. And obviously, well, not obviously, but I don't think she's a psychopath. I don't think that's what we're dealing with here. However, you can still see those tendencies in there. You can still see things happening, and you can still see her being aware of her behavior. That's what I'm starting to look at to find interesting in this 4 minutes we're looking at, because her expressions, they don't morph from one to the other. They just click from one to the other. Check that out when you watch the replay, because we saw that in Amber Heard. We've seen that in a couple of others where they're thinking about what expressions they should show, because the expressions go from one to another. They'll morph into each other, whereas these just click in. Watch that. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, sometimes with autistic people, they'll know they have to look a specific way or look a certain way, because when you're talking a specific way, you have to have the expression that shows that. And it takes practice to do that. It takes a while to get that together so you can at least look like you're having the expressions that other people are used to seeing people who are talking about what you're talking about, what they have. I don't know if I explained that clearly enough, but you have to have the face that goes with the emotion or the thing you're talking about. So when helping autistic people or all those on the spectrum, whatever is correct, that's one of the things you show them. One of the things you teach them is how to put those together so it looks normal. And it takes a while. It takes practice. So maybe she's reading a book or something. It isn't working with somebody. Maybe she is. Maybe she's not on the spectrum. I don't know. But it sure looks like something's going on there to me, because everything is just clicking from one to the other. So that sort of puts me on guard for knocks psychopathy, I think, right out of the thing there for me, because she's, on one hand, you could say, well, a psychopath would want to do these things, but a psychopath doesn't think that because they think they've already got it figured out because of the huge ego there. So there's a lot going on in here. I'm sure there's a personality type or something going on there that we're all missing, that we don't have the understanding of, that would make complete sense if somebody explained it to us. Told specifically what that was.
She's nuts.
Yeah. Or bat crazy. So, yeah, because something's up there. I don't know. But she's, at the same time, you see her trying, what looks like she's trying to connect, with these guys. It's bizarre behavior. This is just bizarre all the way around because she's trying to connect with them. So I don't feel sorry for her. Like Greg and I were talking about on the phone earlier. So, man, I feel kind of sorry for her because she's, then I said, I don't care because of what she's done. But it seems like she's trying to connect in there with those guys a little bit. So it's just really, it's fascinating, I think. Just really odd behavior and fascinating to watch.
I don't think
not a lot.
% evil, but we all,
I'm not going to comment on anything. It's not my job to comment on it, okay? Because I've got to be impartial with everything, okay? So I'm not going to give any comment.
No. Well, I mean, I deserve to obviously get whatever's coming sentence-wise because that's the right thing to do, and that might give me a bit of peace. Also in the handbag as well, there's and again, because you're probably going to need to know about it, there's a card in there, card one money, and that's a bank card where there's a lot of transactions that have taken place over the last few years from money that pertains to my parents. So, murder weapon is upstairs in the toilet room, kitchen knife, it's in the middle of the brown carpet, against the wall, opposite the shelves, so there are two long white shelves, so opposite where that wall is, that's where the knife is. So next bit is very hard to talk about. That's probably the most grisly detail. So on the ground floor, underneath the stairs, there's a few like storage boxes and things. And in the middle, I think it's in one of the boxes or in a bag or something. If you want me to shush after this, it's fine. But every bit helps. You will find forensic bits helpful. There's a hammer. I know, but I'm trying to help so you find everything. It's in the middle underneath the stairs. It will still have blood on it. It's rusted, but it will still have blood traces on it. So not cooperating is futile.
Yeah.
There's no point in not cooperating, there really isn't. And plus, apart from much anyway, I should take what has come. That's the other side of the coin, I think. So.
All right, I'll go first on this one. Well, as she's talking about this, it sounds like she's at Bed Bath & Beyond, and she's telling her sisters where the towels are that have cats on them. That's the attitude she has in this. It's like nothing for her. It's like, oh yeah, it's right over here. Do this, do that. Bizarre. As she's talking about what the most horrific thing you can possibly imagine to happen to you, your parents passing away at the same time, being killed, but she's the one that did it, and it's nothing to her. It means it emotionally, from this standpoint, again, fascinating because it's not affecting her, it doesn't seem like. So, and then again, like Chase was saying, I think 2 videos ago, I think the second one in, she seems a little bit even more resigned to what's happening here, almost like she's relaxing into it. So, like the relief of this isn't anything big now that it's over with. They caught me. You always hear these stories about how when people fall asleep in the interrogation room, that's after they've been caught, and usually they fall asleep in the car on the way over. Once they catch them, they're asleep. They got to get up. You got to go in here. But then when we see her wiping her eyes, I think that does show emotion there. I think that looks to me like that might be tears coming up out of there. So she's feeling grief, or what appears to be grief. I guess talking like a lawyer, but. I don't think that part is for show. Usually when people are like show crying, they'll let tears roll down. They'll stay there. They won't mess with them to make sure everybody sees the one tear or the bunch of tears. So I don't think that's what. And she's not doing it like, and sniffing and doing the whole business like what's his name? Yeah, but what's the guy's name? He was in the front of the car, and the cops are in the back and to the side of the car.
Murda.
Yeah, no, that was his was for show. This isn't for show. She's not making any big deal about that. But it just seems odd to me. I think that I really like this one because it's just so weird. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you. So this constant return to the idea that it's pointless not to cooperate shows, in my opinion, that she's strategically positioning herself. I think she's trying to control how the officers perceive her and likely wants to gain some kind of favor by appearing compliant here. She's not cooperating because she feels it's the right thing to do, but because she believes it's the smartest thing to do. That's the difference. The right thing and the smartest thing. So just by playing the part of the helpful, cooperative suspect, she might think she's maybe gaining some control over how leniently she could be treated, or at least influencing how she's perceived by these people that are in authority, these police. So when somebody repeatedly is emphasizing their cooperation, especially in a calculated way, it's usually a sign that they're trying to control how they're being perceived instead of showing genuine remorse. You got to look beyond the cooperation itself and focus on why they're so eager to help, because usually it's about self-interest and managing somebody's image. Mark from the Death Star with your light out over.
Yeah,
I was going to say something about that. That was weird.
I'm going to do like the film noir version of all of this.
Deep voice
for this one.
Yeah.
You're a detective. Let's do it. Let's have it. Act like a detective. Let's see these acting skills.
Yeah. Look, really good illustrators here. Like really good, spot on. Baton gestures, spot on. So with all this helpfulness, just as you say, Chase, around where the evidence is and how it can be used, she's being absolutely honest around that. But why, to your point, is she being absolutely honest? I have a big square box put around overtly cooperative. So it's not covert cooperation. It's like right in your face. She couldn't be more cooperative. She even says that there's just no point in not cooperating. So she is overt about the whole thing. She even says, if you'd like me to shush, after this, then I will. So it's not like, oh, right, I'll shut up now because obviously this isn't helpful. She says, I will shush if you tell me to after I've told you what I'm going to tell you. So, I would like to think just, the good people of Essex are this helpful when one of them knocks off their mum and dad. But I think this particular character is overtly helpful when she's knocked off her mum and dad. And to your point, Scott, around the emotion, yeah, there's something that feels right about it. But she does check to see if there's tears there. And if it wasn't for that checking moment, it might have had enough for me in the rhythm of it and the tune of it to go, oh yeah, that's pretty good. She's feeling something. But then why does she need to check? Just as you say, Scott, if she's crying, she's crying. You get overwhelmed by the emotion for a period of time. You're not that worried about how it looks socially, so you don't, but she's there checking to see, is that getting me the result that I'm looking for? But amazing calm there, amazing calm. Greg, what do you got on this one?
So intelligence interrogation has a term called break. You guys all think of breaking somebody as people thinking it's confession time. That's not what intelligence interrogation is. Intelligence interrogation is overcoming objection to the point that the person then is willing to give you information. And it can be brutal. If Chase or I were captured, part of the reason we went through SEER school is to learn to resist the pressure. What's really interesting about what happens is once you're broken, guess what happens? Person just starts being helpful. They do. It just is the nature of a person. And part of it is because you've created a brand new Maslow, and that person is now fighting with their personality not to be a jerk and not to help you. And then when you cross that line, they want to retrieve some human value is what I think is going on. So they become more helpful. They give you more information a lot of times than they would. And I think we may be seeing this, in my opinion, we may be seeing the same thing here. She has very little humanity left. And this is an opportunity to retrieve that. So, and all you're saying, Mark, agree. It could be for treatment later, but it certainly could be just at the core of self. Remember, I don't think we're dealing with Einstein here. And she's not an evil genius. She's not Hannibal Lecter sitting in that room going, even though they have her looking like that. I think it is that natural tendency of humans to get some rudimentary respect or that kind of thing back. We see it in interrogation all the time. So thinking about the difference between what broke means in my world and what a confession is can be very different. A guy might really be, no kidding, a stellar citizen of his country, but you get him to the point where he crosses the line and he has to be helpful to you so you don't go out and back to his people for doing it. Ton of things in the psyche of humans that's really interesting, including how we respond to pressure after we get to a certain point. So I want to think about it as if she's trying to regain some kind of human dignity with that little bit of what she can do. However, the reason I think she may also be looking for that approval is she does what exactly I've said, bracing for impact. She does a long, rambling, distancing description of there is a hammer, boom, followed by a brace, that pause before she goes to her next sentence, waiting for what you're going to do and how you're going to respond. That's why I think she's working to try to make sure that she's treated more politely by these people. At this time in a real interrogation, what I would usually do is lean over and say, hey, it's okay. We know, we really appreciate it. We appreciate everything you've done for us. We appreciate you getting us to this point. Nobody's judging you. We get it. We understand. And that usually is when they start to bleed information. Once they've broken, they start to give you this stuff. But she's given everything. I think we're seeing, if I thought she was an evil genius, I would think she's doing something very, very meticulously scripted. I think she's just grasping at this point. And I think it's comes from something deep in her childhood, from somewhere in there where she learned to be compressed and all that stuff we were talking about earlier. And the organism's doing what made it successful to get to this point. That's all I got.
Yeah. One thing I learned through training, those first 3 levels of Maslow is survival, safety, belonging. When they start being interrogated, those 3 levels belong to them.
Yep.
And then we capture level 1. Then we capture level 2, and then the interrogator captures hopefully level 3, and that's like the breaking point.
Yeah, and Chase, I agree with you. The biggest thing most people think is that you hold somebody's head in a mop bucket and they start to talk. That's when they start to resist. They're going to do whatever the hell you need to do to give you information. It's when you get to that insidious place where you're bonded to them that they have a difficult time getting out of it.
Yeah. Anytime you're rough with somebody, like if you've seen those military interrogations in the movies, anytime you're rough, that means level 1 of Maslow's pyramid, it still belongs to them because they are fighting for their survival. So, which means you will never own level 2 or level 3.
Yep. And anytime somebody's doing that to you, you should be not suspicious of them, but the person who comes and stops it.
Don't be telling that.
Why?
Right.
Not that part, man. I know, but that's something.
So, murder weapon is upstairs in the toilet room, kitchen knife. It's in the middle of the brown carpet, against the wall, opposite the shelves. So there are 2 long white shelves. So opposite where that wall is, that's where the knife is. So next bit is very hard to talk about. That's probably the most grisly detail. So on the ground floor, underneath the stairs, there's a few like storage boxes and things. And in the middle, I think it's in one of the boxes or in a bag or something. If you want me to shush after this, it's fine. But every bit helps. You will find forensically it's helpful. There's a hammer. I know. I know, but I'm trying to help so you find everything. It's in the middle underneath the stairs. It will still have blood on it. It's rusted, but it will still have blood traces on it. So not cooperating is it's futile.
Yeah.
There's no point in not cooperating. There really isn't. And plus, apart from that, anyway, I should take what has come. That's the other side of the coin, I think. So,
Mark, what's your verdict so far?
Yeah, interesting. So we've got somebody here, calm, collected, operational, very, very helpful, overtly helpful, and sometimes spins to anger, cynicism, sarcasm, a sense of disgust with what's going on. So interesting character there. We haven't seen anything like this before, but that's maybe because we're in Essex and all bets are off. Anybody in England knows all bets are off once you get to Essex. So what I would say is put your best, make them kind, don't make them too rude, but put your best Essex jokes down below and let's see what we get. Give us a bit of a laugh. Essex can take it. Come on, you can take it, Essex. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to top that, but this whole thing is a disturbing mix of emotional detachment, manipulation. And I think her calm demeanor, this little selective empathy that we saw here, and what I would call calculated cooperation. That sounds rhetorical. But I think they're revealing a need for control, not remorse. And I think it's very easy to label her behavior, but I think true understanding goes way deeper than diagnoses. I think it's about recognizing the patterns that she's used to navigate conflict since childhood. So if you can identify behavioral patterns, this is much more valuable than just assigning a label, because patterns show us how a person navigates their life, especially under stress. And a diagnosis might give us some broad idea, or say, give us a feeling, a placebo of like, oh, I know what's going on here. But it's an oversimplification. Patterns reflect these deep-rooted habits that are shaped by past experiences, and they allow us to understand why somebody reacts the way they do. We can understand their past, and we can predict their future if we understand all this person's patterns. And that's what I try to show you here. Greg?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you hit early on is don't try to assign a value to somebody, especially somebody like this, who has done something anomalous, period. Killed her parents, apparently killed no one else, killed her parents. There's some reason behind why she did it, whether it's money or something else. But then lived with her in the house with the two people there for 4 years and was able to pull off. Her parents were traveling or doing something else. So she had the right answer at the right time, which tells us she's good at talking to people when she's probed or poked for something and answering a question. But I also think when you have 4 years to sit and grind it around in your head, you grind all the corners off of every answer you can think of, but you don't grind the answers that you haven't thought of. So when she's asked a hard question, which we didn't hear, we just heard them listening. She's asked a hard question, she may not have the answer. Like, why? Why? We never heard. Nobody wanted to, because they're trying to get as much information and get a confession as they could. That makes perfect sense. But then even on the most rudimentary level, humans need humans. She apparently spent a lot of money doing something. I don't know where she spent it, but she was 60,000 pounds in debt, apparently in her parents' credit cards and that kind of thing. So she's either going out and doing something, or she's got a hell of a collection of something at home. If she's going out and she's still socially interacting, so it tells you she needs people. It's clear to me that she needs some kind of human value retained at the end of this thing. She's helpful, and I think in part that may be so she gets better treatment, but she's in a glass box. How much better is her treatment going to get right there? I think what we're seeing here is a person trying to grasp, and she's doing exactly what we see in an interrogation once the person breaks. And that is at the core of people, or it wouldn't work on so many people. Scott, what do you got?
All right. I really like this one because we're so used to seeing behavior and boxing it up and saying, oh, we know what this is, and here's what this is, and this is what this means. That's really tough with this one because there's so much going on in here. Yeah. I think for all of us, I think it was really a good little exercise in using all of our tools to see if we can figure out what's going on in there for her. So I really like this one a lot. She's the way she stayed calm the whole time, the way we saw no pushback anywhere, her acceptance of all this, all that's normal in one thing. But you don't have dead bodies that you've killed your parents, in the basement and upstairs, while you're, along with those. So that's why you've got that people going, oh, it's psychopathy, oh, it's the autism spectrum. I really like this one. I think it was fascinating. I've never seen anything like this before. Now, don't forget to download that PDF because you're going to get a copy of all of our notes and a couple other things in there, surprises for you. So let's do that. All right. Thanks for another good one, fellas, and we'll see you next time.
The behavior panel.
No, I was just going to say to the people of Essex, do I look bothered? Am I bothered? Do I look bothered? Am I bothered? Not bothered. Not bothered.
Where is Essex compared to London?
Thing, isn't it?
It's just next to London, east.
How far away is it? Where's the O2 Dome?
Well, that's on the Thames. So Essex is the estuary. So as the estuary, widens, then you get into Essex.
So if I'm in Hyde Park, and then
you're nowhere near Essex, mate.
Okay. Then there's the O2 Dome, which is fairly far away.
A long way away. Yes.
Yeah.
Wrong direction.
So, because the only areas I know are Hyde Park and that section of London there, and then where the O2 Dome is, because I was there.
Yeah.
For one time I was there. But the other times growing up, I've gone to London. Where is Essex compared to where Hyde Park and that section of London is? How far? Am I 30 minutes away from it, an hour away from it?
You could get there in like 30, 35, 40 minutes on a train. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's some parts of it which, as the East End hits the marshes a little bit more, like you probably, like Canvey Island would be, I don't know, is Canvey Island, you tell me.
O2 Dome to Essex by car is probably 55 minutes.
Yeah. Depending where. It's a big county. It's a big big place.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Map, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Put this in, this will just have riled people from Essex even more.
But you don't know.
Really?
Yeah, at this point, there is nothing we can say to unrile the good burgers of Essex.
This makes me want to go to Essex because I know they'll want to fuss with me.
Enjoy your chips there.
Are they good? Fish and chips?
All right. Essex people like them.
What if we put after the credits, hey, all of us like with a really somber face going, all right, listen, to the people of Essex, we're sorry. We wanted to make an apology video ahead of
To the internet.
Yeah.
Do an apology video.
I can't believe our actions and how we've spoken about it and how it's brought such discredit upon our channel.
Can anybody cry on command? Mark?
Not over
maybe?
Essex.